Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into one of the most bizarre, literally mind-bending true stories that's been hiding right out in the open. Imagine a town in upstate New York that existed entirely on paper long before it ever existed in physical reality. I know, it sounds completely impossible, right? Well, let's just dive right in.
So, picture this. It's the 1930s. You look at a standard gas station map, and it shows this town called Agloe. It's got the whole shebang, a general store, a fishing lodge, paved roads, but here is the absolute kicker. If you actually got in your car and drove out to those exact coordinates, you wouldn't find a town. You'd find yourself standing in the middle of a completely empty, dead silent dirt field. Nothing. Agloe was, for all intents and purposes, a total ghost.
All right, Section 1, Setting the Trap. To figure out why Agloe was even on that map to begin with, we've got to meet two guys, Otto Lindbergh and Ernest Alpers. Now, these two mapmakers had a massive problem on their hands, and that was data theft. Because think about it, in the map-making world, how do you actually prove a competitor just traced your work instead of spending months doing the hard surveying themselves? Well, to protect their intellectual property, they invented Agloe. It was a copyright trap. Basically, they slipped a completely fake, made-up place onto their official map. And the logic here is just brilliant. If your totally invented town suddenly shows up on a competitor's map down the line, boom, you've caught the data thieves red-handed. Agloe was literally never meant to be a destination. It was a tripwire.
Which brings us to Section 2, the lawsuit and the twist.
So, just a few years after Lindbergh and Alpers laid this trap, a rival company releases their own map. And wouldn't you know it, right there in the Catskill Mountains plain as day is Agloe. The trap had dramatically sprung. Obviously, our original mapmakers are thrilled, and they immediately start prepping this massive copyright lawsuit against the rival company. I mean, they had caught them stealing dead to rights. Or, well, actually, so they thought.
This brings us to a terrifying bombshell dropped by the competitors' lawyers, one that completely shattered the entire lawsuit. They essentially told the judge, hey, there is a real building there. The rival mapmakers proved in court that they hadn't stolen a single thing. And why? Because they'd actually driven out to those exact coordinates during their own surveying process, and they found a very real, very physical building standing exactly where the map said it would be. And you know what its name was? The Agloe General Store. No way, right?
Let's unpack that in Section 3, Fiction Forces into Reality.
So, how on earth does a fake copyright trap end up with a real, working general store? It's this fascinating, kind of crazy progression of human error that breaks down an absolutely illogical event. Defying all logic, a local businessman had simply bought the fake map created by our original mapmakers, and, well, because the official map said Agloe was a real destination, he just completely assumed it was. He actually moved his entire life out to those empty coordinates and opened up a business, naming it the Agloe General Store just to match the map. And here's where it gets truly wild. Because the map said the town existed, and because there was now an actual store sitting there, people came. An actual physical community formed around a deliberate printing error. So essentially, by trying to protect their copyright, these two mapmakers inadvertently acted as city planners. A fictional place on a piece of paper had literally forced itself into reality. The information on that map didn't just reflect the physical world, it actively created it out of thin air. It's just mind-blowing.
Let's look at how this wraps up in Section 4, Return to the Phantom.
Now, the story of Agloe doesn't end with it becoming some booming metropolis. The physical world eventually, caught back up with the fiction. Years later, the Agloe General Store finally closed its doors for good. And without the anchor of that store keeping people there, nature just slowly began to reclaim the land, turning it right back into a quiet field. Finally, the modern digital maps we use on our phones today caught the old error, and they quietly erased the phantom town forever. Which brings us right up to the present day. If you were to drive down Route 206 in upstate New York right now, there are no buildings. There's no general store. You are right back to driving straight through a phantom.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought. If the information in the maps we consume every day can literally manifest physical reality, creating a whole town out of thin air just because someone printed it on a page, what other phantoms are we driving through right now? What other parts of our everyday reality only exist simply because someone somewhere put it down on paper or coded it into an app? Definitely something to think about the next time you blindly follow your GPS. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning the map.